We're going to continue in our series on Sunday mornings about suffering. Suffering. Last week we talked about the fact that suffering is universal. Most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid it. And you are not going to avoid it. We are not going to avoid it. Suffering is universal. It comes knocking at everybody's door. Everybody's. And you say, but if I could just get myself in this position in life, surely I can. Well, surely not. You can't. It respects no one. It respects nobody of position, of power, of money. And often, to be honest with you, often those people experience more tragedy. If you just think about it, they experience more tragedy than those that don't have it. So I wouldn't be trying to win the lottery. A lot of heartache comes with that, with money. And so anyway, not preaching on that today. But suffering is going to happen. We talked about that. You can't run from it. Now, and that is all under the watchful gaze, the power, the sovereignty of God. All suffering is. Does He create sin? No, He does not. But sin and suffering is a pawn in His hands. He allows for it to come into our lives for His purposes. Now you can rest assured of that. If something horrible happens, oh, by the way, before I get too deep into this, I do want to say it's good to see Bonnie Adcock back here, almost all the way in the back. Yeah, it's good to see her here this morning. And, Brother Aubrey's now walking with Jesus. And but Bonnie is back here the first Sunday after that. I'm so proud of her and just a wonderful lady. And then we have Donna Jordan back here on this side, Tim's mom. Donna said goodbye to Roy, her husband, back in April. And then just this past week, she lost her mother, and who is with Jesus also. So I'm really glad to see Donna here this morning right in her place. Let's give her a quick hand too. So for Donna, for Bonnie, for whoever, and most people in this room are suffering in some shape, form, or fashion this morning. There's something uncomfortable going on. There's something that's challenging your peace. There's something that's making you uncomfortable. There's something that's making you worry. There's something that's bringing anxiety into your life. And it's suffering, it's hardship, it's disappointment. It's all the things that we try to control and limit in our lives that come along anyway. Today we're going to talk about in this defense. The series is a defense of suffering. We have got to get to the point in our lives that when we see suffering coming, when we know it, and when it has arrived, that we look at it and we actually, the truth of the matter is, we open the door and say, come on in. It's coming in anyway. It doesn't ask permission. So we might as well see suffering as God sees suffering and open the door and say, well, I'm not saying that I couldn't wait for you to get here, but now that you're here, do the work in my life that God sent for you to do. Helen Keller said, how many teenagers? Raise your hand if you've ever heard of Helen Keller. Okay, well, very good. I thought for sure I wouldn't see a hand go up. She said character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Now this is a person that knew something about suffering. Character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened. That seems backward, doesn't it? We tend to think that suffering destroys, and suffering brings us down, and suffering weights us down. But its intent in the mind of God is to build us. And we talked about that last week, and we'll talk about it again today. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, ambition inspired, and success achieved. It's a great statement. Now, I know, surely in a group like this, there's somebody out there that just heard me say that and then repeat it, and you kind of, either on the outside or on the inside, you got your arms folded and you're thinking, yeah, right. Yeah, whatever. See, my mom's down here, got her arms folded. Mom said, I'm just trying to get comfortable. And Charlotte's cold, we know that. No, you know what I'm saying. We look at it and we hear somebody that has the right to say this. And we say, whatever. You haven't experienced what I'm experiencing. We read stories in the Bible of people that have undergone severe suffering and hardship, and we wondered, how in the world is that possible? How can they go through this and still maintain their sanity? Much less be thankful for it. The Bible does command us to, in all things, give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. Suffering is part of all things. And we read about it, though, and we see, we read about the time that God allowed Satan to attack Job. And really, folks, who's been through it like Job went through it? I don't personally know anybody that has suffered to that extent. Lost everything, his whole family, save his wife, lost all of his wealth, everything that he had, basically in a snap of a finger, the devil just burned it down. And here's what he said, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Do you ever read that and go, I don't even begin to understand those words. How can this man, when we know that God told Satan, look, as I've said before, and I want to make it clear again, he cannot take a step without the approval of God. He cannot take his next breath without God saying, oh, by the way, you know that your next breath just came from me. I could snatch the life right out of you if I wanted to. He has to get permission to do anything in this world. It has to go through God. And we are in the palm of God. So he's got to go through God to get to us. I love this statement here. The most important thing about a person is what enters his or her mind when he or she thinks of God. The most important thing about us is the thing that enters our mind, the first thing that enters our mind when we think of God. What is yours? What is the first thing that enters your mind when you think of God? Is it bitterness? Is it a judgmental attitude for, you just haven't done right by me? Is the first thing that, wow, I love you. You know why? Because you love me. Is the first thought of, well, God is omniscient. He knows everything. Did it ever dawn on you that nothing ever dawns on God? It doesn't. He's known it from the beginning. And whatever you're going through is part of His plan for your life, and it has been approved of God. Does His sovereignty, His omniscience, He's all-knowing. He's omnipotent. He is all-powerful. He is omnipresent, meaning that He is in all places at all times. He loves us unconditionally. What comes to your mind when you think of God? That's the most important thing about you. Trusting God during times and seasons of suffering should be far easier if we have the knowledge of the purposes of suffering. And we're going to look at those this morning. This morning we'll look at 5 purposes for the Christian for suffering, and how the suffering can elevate a person's life to biblical proportions. You ever wondered how Daniel could be threatened with being thrown into the lion's den for praying, yet he prayed anyway, knowing exactly what was going to happen? You ever wondered why Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were threatened to be thrown into the fiery furnace if they would not bow down to the big image of Nebuchadnezzar, yet they refused to bow down? You ever wonder how Moses and Joshua and Ruth and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Peter, and on through the Bible, we have these great characters that God has brought them to us through the Scriptures, that we might read of their lives and the things that happened to them and how they overcame and how they found the victory, and why did God write them to us? So that we could sit back and say, that could never happen to me? No. So that we could look at them and say, that's exactly the kind of success and victory that I can have in my life. Point number one. The first purpose is to, now these are not in any order of significance necessarily, but the first one we'll mention today is to chasten us for disobedience. Now, God, Revelation 3:19 says, as many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. Chastening by the hand of God in your and my life is a sign that He loves us. It's not a sign of anger. Do we understand that? Do we understand that God is never angry with us? He's never mad, and He's never smites us to make Himself feel better. As my dad used to say, people like to say you should never discipline your children in anger. My dad said, I don't think I ever disciplined when I wasn't angry. That's the whole reason I disciplined them. He's not here today, so I can pick on him. If we did, though, God never does. He disciplines us. He chastens us. The word chastening in the Bible means to correct by punishment. It's with correction in mind. It's not with, you've made me mad, now I'm going to hurt. You hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you back. That is not God. God says, no, you're bent on a direction. You're headed down a path that's going to bring hurt. It's going to bring hardship. It's going to bring suffering that I never would have brought into your life. Wreckage and defeat. I want to keep you from that. So I'm going to chasten you. I'm going to correct you. It means to inflict pain for the purpose of reclaiming the offender. I like that. Chastening is to inflict pain in an effort to reclaim the offender. God says, I'm trying to bring you back, so I'm going to make the road tough on you. First purpose, to chasten us, to correct us for our disobedience. We generally know this one. This is probably the one purpose that that most of us in here would say, well, yeah, I get that, because, as a parent, I discipline my children to try to correct them and to try to make that path they're on more painful than the path that they should be on. So we sort of get this one. This is more easily understood. Now listen to this quote here. It's a little bit lengthy, but listen to me, made by John Newton. He says, faith upholds a Christian under all trials by assuring him that every painful dispensation is under the direction of his Lord, that chastisements are a token of His love, that the season, measure, and continuance of His sufferings are appointed by infinite wisdom and designed to work for His everlasting good, and that grace and strength shall be afforded him according to his need. That's a great statement of the chastening that God brings into our lives, in particular when it comes because of our disobedience. Now look, let's not be so pharisaical that we look at people and say, oh, they're having a tough time. I know why. God's spanking them. They're not right with God. Well, you know what? Won't you just get ready and turn around and get ready for your spanking? Because for us to look at somebody else and point at them with our tongues, that forked tongue of ours, and to say, we know why you're suffering, because you're not right with God and God's just disciplining you and you deserve it. Hey, If we did think that about somebody, we should, number one, be corrected by God and say, okay, that's none of my business. I don't have a clue what God's doing in their life. And number two, we should pray for God to be merciful. Do you want God to be merciful when He chooses to chasten you? Yes or no? Do you want Him to be merciful? And do you want that season of suffering to be shorter? Yes or no? Yes, we do. Well, then that's what we ought to be praying for other people, that maybe we have an inclination, maybe really struggling, and God's kind of getting after them. We should be praying for the mercy of God, that they would look to God and understand what He's doing in their lives. Point number two. The second purpose is to experience God's strength in our weakness. Now, I love this. To experience God's strength in our weakness. Anyone other than Job, if there's anyone else that knows a lot about suffering, it was the Apostle Paul. Listen to this. Acts 9, Acts 9, verses 15 and 16. How would you like for Jesus to say this of you? But the Lord said unto him, Ananias, talking to Ananias, that he wanted to go find Saul. At the time, Paul was still Saul. And he says, you're going to help me now. And Saul just got saved. You're going to help me. Here's what he says. But the Lord said unto him, go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. Now, if God said that about you, and you knew it, if Jesus said that about you and He said, you're a chosen vessel, you know what we would do? Chosen vessel. Hey, chosen vessel right here. Everybody wake up out there. Chosen vessel in the house. Right? That's what we would think. Unto me. Chosen vessel. Hey, oh, by the way, for the Lord. To bear my name before the Gentiles. I'm going to live my life doing God's work, and kings. I'm going to be in palaces, folks. You won't be seeing much of me here in the next few months or so. I'll be traveling. You know where I'm going? I'm going all over the world. Going to go to all the greatest palaces and meet the kings, and I'll be rubbing elbows with them and associating with them and eating of their fine things. And yeah, that's what chosen vessels do. Don't you wish you were a chosen vessel? To bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. That sounds pretty good. That sounds to be a pretty lofty thing to do and to be used of God to do. Let me read you the second part. Let me read you the second part, verse 16. I'll read verse 15 again. But the Lord said unto him, go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. Second part, for I will show him how great things he must suffer for my name's sake. Do you get that? The first part sounds like, man, God, look, I don't know about anybody else, but He called me a chosen vessel. I must be something special. And look, and I'm going to go and I'm going to preach before kings. Then He says, for I will show him how great things he must suffer for my name's sake. A lot of us, I'm out. I don't want any part of that. Oh, wait a minute, I thought you were enjoying the call of God on your life. I thought you were enjoying the will of God for your life. I thought you were enjoying that part of, oh, yes, God, use me as a chosen vessel. Use me. And put me in positions around the loftiest people in the world. God says, no, before you do that, you've got to be broken. And you're going to suffer. And while you do that, you're going to suffer great things. How about that? God, hey, God who's capable of everything, right? When God says great things, When you and I say it, we just mean like something's up here. When God uses the word great, He's really differentiating from the normal to great. You understand what I'm saying? And He said, Paul, you're going to suffer, and you're not just going to suffer, you're going to suffer great things for my name's sake. But it is through the suffering that God's strength can be fully shown. The chosen vessel of Saul, soon to be Paul, had to be broken like Gideon's pitcher in the Old Testament for the light to shine through. The man will appear before kings, but he had to suffer greatly first. 2 Corinthians 12:10 speaks of this. Paul says, I welcome suffering. I rejoice in suffering and all the hardships and the suffering and the trials and all the things that have come my way, because I have learned, if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. In my suffering as it makes me weak, He becomes what? Strong. So what does that tell you? If God is not able to break us and to make us weak, then He does not become strong. He is the one that remains limited. Limited. Suffering. Purpose is to experience God's strength in our lives. It weakens. Look, suffering was sent to destroy. Okay? It was. But we let it destroy the wrong things. We let suffering destroy our peace of mind. We let suffering destroy our view of the future. And the darkness of suffering, as it envelops around us, we become afraid, and we allow it to destroy our trust in God. What suffering is there, and what it is meant to do, is to weaken us, yes, but it is to weaken our attachment to our own strength. Did anybody get that? Say amen if you got it. Amen. Okay, thank you. There you go. No, did you understand what I'm saying? It was sent to destroy, but it was sent to destroy our faith in ourselves. It was sent to undermine that, to jerk that rug out from under our feet and leave us on the ground where we look up and say, oh, that's right. And then God says, now you just stay where you're at and let me come in and let me be strong and let me show you the great and mighty things that you don't know that I can do in your life. Point number 3. The first one is suffering comes into our lives for chastening, and chastening is always meant to correct and to reclaim us. Point number 2 is it is sent into our lives to experience the strength of God's strength in our weakness. Point number 3, the third purpose is to allow us to see God more clearly and personally. Very related to number 2. But allow us to get a glimpse of God more clearly and personally. It purifies, and then that glimpse of God purifies us. Isaiah chapter 6, I think it is. The Bible says that when Isaiah says that when I saw Jesus, I fell down. And the angel came and took a coal and touched my lips, purifying my speech, purifying. The whole view of Jesus was an incredible view that humbled me immediately and purified me of any pride and arrogance that might be in my life. Proverbs 17 verse 3 says, God references the fact that God purifies our heart through fire as He does silver. Silver is heated up to a liquid. Silver and gold can be heated up to a liquid form. And the impurities called the dross, D-R-O-S-S, called dross, it means impurities, they float to the surface. And when they come to the surface, a person who works with silver and gold can then scoop them off and remove them, making the gold and the silver more pliable, more formable. if he allows the impurities to remain in that metal, the metal becomes more brittle. The more impurity in the metal, the more brittle that metal becomes, and it cannot be made really into much of anything. But the more pure it becomes, the more pliable it comes. Are you getting where I'm going? The more pliable and workable it comes. When you say, I just don't want suffering in my life, it's just not worth it. Well, then the impurities are going to remain. You're not going to see God. It's not that vision of Him is not going to. You won't see God the way that He wants to be seen, in the way that you really need to see Him. The only people that do that are the ones that go through suffering, which brings the impurities. It's like a fire that purifies us and creates us to be a more moldable possession in His hands. When did the deacon, by the way, when did the deacon see Jesus? When he was being what? Stoned. Not when he was stoned. When he was being stoned. Does the Bible tell us that Stephen saw him at any other time? The Bible doesn't tell us that. When he was being stoned and they were killing him, the clouds opened up and he saw Jesus standing at the right, I love telling this, standing at the right hand of the Father. And I think that Jesus was there looking and saying to Stephen, I got my eyes on you. I see you. I see you suffering for my name's sake. And you know what? I'm going to see you, and we'll have time in just a few minutes. We'll have time to talk about all of this because I'm bringing you home. Stephen would have never seen Jesus in this. And what was Stephen's reaction? I can't believe you're not coming down here and saving me from this. Was that it? What did Stephen say? He saw Jesus. That's all he needed, folks. And one of the reasons why people struggle with suffering so much is they're not seeing Jesus. They're seeing themselves, they're looking in the mirror and they're saying, woe is me, life is so hard, everything's unfair. And Jesus says, you ought to look up because I'm here. You can see, you can find me. And when he did, when Stephen saw him, he said, Father, lay not this sin to their charge. Said basically the same thing that Jesus said on the cross. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, when they were going into the fire, did they see Jesus in the furnace? Yes, they did. And did they see Him before they went into the furnace? No, they didn't. When they took their stand for God, they couldn't see that Jesus. They didn't say, hey, Jesus is in there. Let's stand up. No, they stood for right. And that brought suffering and persecution into their life. And they said, go ahead and kill us. God's able to deliver us, but kill us if you want. But we're not going to bow down. They were thrown into the fire, bound hand and foot by the ropes. And that's where Jesus was. Jesus was in the furnace. He was in the furnace of affliction. Saying, come on in, the water's fine. They would never have seen Him had they not gone through that. Daniel in the lion's den, same thing. Apostles or disciples or apostles being locked up and in jail. I think Peter and John was what? Same thing. They saw great things from God. God says, I want you to see me more clearly, but in order to do that, I've got to burn away this fog in front of you called self. This fog, this darkness in front of you that keeps you from seeing me more clearly called pride. This thing in front of you that says, I love you and I do depend on you, but as long as my finances are in order, we're good. And God says, I may have to burn that down someday, and then we'll see how good we are. And if we are good, and if you continue to look to me, you're going to see me like you've never seen me before. You're going to see me like very few people see me. That's what Paul did. Paul got to a point where he says, I welcome it. When I see suffering come to my life, when I see that it's destroying my weakness, I say, great, wonderful. Because I know that He's going to be strong. And I know that I'm going to see incredible things and I will see him as he really desires to be seen. And that's not only you, it's other people around you too. When you see God as he truly wants to be seen, and that suffering has purified you, and you're starting, and not purified to perfection, you understand that, but has purified you more, conformed you more to the image of his Son, you get a view of him that few people get, and people around you see it also. What did Nebuchadnezzar do when they threw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the furnace? What did he do? He looked in there and he said, I see 3 men, and I see another one that looks like the Son of God. Did he say at that point, well, bring them out and chop their heads off? Is that what he said? No, he said, get them out of there now. I've got to talk to these men. And he said, their God is the God. I don't think he got saved that day. But God revealed himself in such a way through Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that everybody around them, God honored himself and glorified himself, to even the king of the world power at that time said, there is no God like that one. So when you choose, when we choose to not go through the suffering, we are also choosing to limit the view of God to people around us. It's not just, look folks, we've got to understand this one concept very clearly. Life is not about us. It's not about you. It's not about me. It is about him. And when we keep that, when we know that, and when that permeates our mind and our heart, suffering, we see it as Paul did. Oh, suffering? I don't know that he prayed for it, but I know this. When it comes my way, I'm like, well, hey, it's a great thing because I'm getting ready to see God in a different way. Point 4, and I'll cover these last 2 quickly here. The 4th purpose is to strengthen the bond of unity in our churches. Hebrews 13:3. Remember them that are in bonds, as bound with them. Remember them that are in bonds as bound with them. Remember them that are suffering as suffering with them. Remember them that are in pain as in pain with them. And them which suffer adversity as being yourselves also in the body. 1 Corinthians 12:25. That there should be no schism in the body, no division, but that the members should have the same care one of another. And whether one member suffer, all members suffer with it. Or one member be honored, all members rejoice with it. It brings unity to the church, suffering does. Because when that person right there begins to suffer, I am to come to him and come to his need and suffer with him. That's what you call unity. When we step back and say, well, he deserved it anyway. Hey, good luck with that. I'll be praying for you. You know what we do? Well, we throw that out so haphazardly. Yeah, I'm praying for you. I'll be praying for you. You know why I'm going to pray for you? Because I don't want to come over there and suffer with you. I'll just stay over here. Praying for you, brother. No, how about going over and lifting them up as the Good Samaritan did and suffering with them? Suffer the loss of time. Suffer the loss of money that it took the Good Samaritan to give to people to care for this man. Suffer with them, and then as you leave their side, after having picked them up, dusted them off, get them back on track, that's when you say, and listen, I'm praying for you, and if you need something else, you come and see me. Suffering bonds brings unity to the church. It should. And purpose 5, it is to build patience in the child of God. Listen to this. I've told this, I think, one other time in here. During a brutal study at Harvard in the 1950s, Dr. Kurt Richter placed rats in a pool of water to test how long they could tread water. On average, they give up and sink after 15 minutes. It's going to blow your mind, folks. They give up and sink after 15 minutes, but right before they gave up due to in other words, some of them sank and died. Well, then he took another group, threw them in it. Right before they began to sink, he saw what was happening. He would pick them up, dry them off, and set them aside. Let them rest for a few minutes, and then put them back in. And then he wanted to see how long they would last. What are you thinking? They lasted another 15 minutes, or maybe because they were already tired, maybe less, maybe 12 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, because they've already become exhausted 5 or 10 minutes ago. How long do you think that these rats could swim? They could swim from that point on, after having been swimming and brought out and given a rest and dried off and put back in. From that point forward, they swam 60 hours. Not 6 hours. 60 hours. You know why? Because they had hope. And hope and hope. Look, for these rats, the fact that they were hoping that hand would come back down and reach it gave them extra strength, gave them extra power, gave them extra that adrenaline, that capacity to keep on and keep on and keep on and keep on, because I know any moment that hand's going to come in and lift me out. And the same is true with God Almighty. He's not going to let you drown. Now, if you say, well, some people die. No, some people, and some people, when they do, when God chooses to pull His children up out of this earth, He has healed them for eternity. They didn't lose. They won the battle. They won the last battle in their life. Hope. Patience. Suffering gives to us patience. Why? What's the big deal? You know what the big deal is? That when you get scared and fearful and anxiety has riddled your mind, you make snap decisions. We make snap decisions, and often a snap decision is a bad decision. Shake your head if you think that's right, seniors. And teenagers. Very good. See, even they know. Snap decisions are generally brought on by Satan. You got to decide, and you got to decide right now. No, God says you need to be patient. And you need to let that initial thing, that initial either fight or flight mentality, you need to let that clear, and then relax, pray, get with God, and then make a decision. And suffering gives us that patience. We know it's coming. It's universal. We know it has many purposes in our lives. One of the main ones is the fact that when we are weak, He is strong. And when things seem cloudy to us, we're getting ready to see God like we've never seen Him before if we are patient. And patience, and look, the Bible says, only by what cometh patience? Anybody know? Tribulation. Only by tribulation. So don't, look, if you don't want suffering, don't pray for patience. Because God says, well, true patience comes from suffering, comes from tribulation, persecution, hardship. Our Heavenly Father is personally overseeing our suffering and has a plan for every day of it. Therefore, we must never attempt to bail out and trust Him to strengthen our faith in His work in our lives. Helen Keller said, all the world is full of suffering. It is also full of overcoming. Is your goal to overcome suffering? Is your goal to overcome by submitting to the suffering of God? Or is it to reject it, to fight it, to try to get out? Are you focusing on the suffering or on the overcoming? Are you focusing on getting out of it instead of on, boy, it's here, I need to let it do its work. I need to let God do in my life what He's trying to do. Can you say with Job this morning, though He slay me, yet will I trust Him? Hopefully, these purposes here can help you when, not if, but when suffering comes knocking at your door. And many are in it right now. hopefully these will help you understand that, the knowledge of God. The truth shall set us what? Actually make us free. The truth will make us free. Having the knowledge of how to deal with suffering frees us from that bondage to it, frees us from the destruction of our mind and in our lives. The knowledge, the truth, allows us to thank God for it and to welcome it. And to say, okay, it's here. Let's let it do its work. And let's let it, weaken us, because then He can be strong when we are weak and our dependence upon our flesh. Let it break it down. How about you this morning? Where are you at? Let's pray. If you're here this morning, you're without Jesus, meaning you're not saved, you've never been born again. Hey, suffering for you is really meant to bring you to Jesus. It is. And I pray you would make that decision today. I pray you would come to Jesus today. I pray that instead of rejecting Him, that you would receive Him today as your Lord and Savior and put your faith in the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's the gospel. That's the good news. As He died for your sins that would separate you from your Father, your Heavenly Father, for eternity in a place called hell. Jesus says, I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to take care of it, but there is one thing that is left to you, and that is for you to reach out and receive the gift of eternal life. To make Jesus your Savior, to put your faith in Him as your only hope for heaven. I pray that you would do that today. If you are unsure, I pray that you would get that straight today before you leave this building. And then if you're a child of God and you say, I know I'm saved, and I know I face suffering, I know I'm going to face it again, and I'm in it right now, but I do see the purposes. I do see that it truly is a positive thing going on. And it truly was designed to destroy a part of me, but that part of me is only my dependence upon myself. And God wants to destroy that and bring us into a closer, more strong, trusting, faithful relationship with Him.